I think this art is fabulous. It kind of defies gravity. You know, the rocks up in the tree. I didn't quite notice, you know, and then I took a double take, like, oh my God, is that real? To the, surroundings, and at first you don't even, it doesn't stick out, and then it's so surreal. I know you seem very surprised, right? Yeah, I love bizarre art, so outsider art, that kind of thing, and I just, wow.
So the work is by an Italian artist named Giuseppe Penone, who's shown outdoors across the world and also indoors. His work since the late 60s. These trees are all in bronze, and the river stones and their branches are between 1 and a few tons each, and they came from a river right outside of his home in Turin.
I think this art is fabulous. It kind of defies gravity. You know, the rocks up in the tree, it's using nature, but it's also using weight, you know, the concept of weight and balance, which I think is fabulous especially for a park. You may remember that my background is in art and design. I studied it as well as worked for the premier color company revered by most designers. My love of art is shared with my wonderful friend and art dealer, Cheryl Sokolow.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me here.
How is the art market at this time?
Things were tough for a couple of years, and I think all the galleries and everybody in the business kind of experienced it, but I really feel positive. The art fairs are reporting record sales, and over the past couple of years, I was in Chelsea last night. It was a buzz with people. I went to several shows. The gallerists were happy. They said that shows are selling, and I really do think that confidence is building amongst collectors, and that things are really picking up.
That's great. How do you choose your artists?
Well, I work with artists. Well, I specialize in sculpture, so that cuts out 90% of artists today. So I have a very specialized niche, and I generally tend to work with sculptors that are very hands-on, produce their own work, make their own work. It sounds kind of obvious, well, an artist makes their own work, but a lot of sculptors today don't. So I really place a lot of emphasis on craftsmanship and artists that are really hands-on in their own creative process. I also gravitate toward artists who are working in kind of an organic fashion as opposed to conceptual.
What inspired you to enter into this field?
Well, I was kind of born into it. My mother was a sculptor, Isabel Sokolow, in very large-scale metalwork. She was a welder, and at the time she was one of the few women in the field. I grew up in art classes by the time I was 8 or 9 years old, where my mother had the freedom to also take an art class, so she kind of put me there so I can kind of sketch and she could do her thing. So it really did influence me, and it actually gave me my foundation for my course of study, which was art history and specializing in sculpture specifically. And this is why I actually really try to include women in my programs. And I'm happy to have a body of my mother's work still, which I've been successful in placing in private collections, and I include in many of my exhibitions. So I have a very strong influence in my childhood.
That's great. So what can you tell me about some of the other artists that you represent?
I work with an artist named Kevin Barrett, who is probably my #1 artist.
I love his work.
Yes. He has a very wide appeal. His work is bright and colorful, and he works very organically with shapes and form, and he's really comes from a tradition of sculptors that are still making their own work, very hands-on, doing their own fabrication. He's collected in the Vero Art Museum, and he's in a lot of collections in the United States and in Europe.
And who are some of the female artists that you're working with today?
Carolyn Ramserdorfer is a female, brilliant female sculptor that I work with, who is Austrian, but is living here in upstate New York, and she works in marble, and she's very well known in the Middle East and Japan. She's collected in museums in China and Japan, and she was in the Biennale in Cairo about 2 years ago, and she's done a lot of work in Abu Dhabi and throughout the Middle East.
And what are some of the special projects that you're working on now?
Well, I'm going to open a sculpture garden in Connecticut to introduce large-scale work to the community and to give people the opportunity to interact with large-scale work. I also will continue my work at the Bridge Gardens in Bridgehampton, and continue to work with private clients to help them find the perfect piece for their home or for their outdoor environment.
That's great.
Neverland, I got a ready plan. There's no ifs, ands.
I'm also fascinated by the urban underground art scene, and it does not always get approval. Here's a little bit of my conversation with street artist Russell King. I'm standing here in Soho, one of the busiest corners of the world for urban street art. I'm going to be interviewing Russell King. He's very well known for his urban street art, his signage, and more, and he'll tell us all about it. Hey, Russell. Russell, tell me, what exactly is urban street art?
Well, I assume that it's anything that anybody puts out on the street. I would like to think that it's something that's put out on the street by somebody's own risk, being that it's not necessarily accepted or legal to do, but it seems like it's gotten into a bigger genre of even legal walls, such as murals, that I think is a different business, but as far as I'm concerned, I would assume that anything street art would, I guess, be anything on the street.
Well, that was going to be my next question. So it's really considered art. I guess it is, because it's really about anything.
Yeah, well, it does get a little dangerous, I think, in that area, because just saying anything is art, in my mind, is a little bit too much of a generalization. A lot of people these days are just taking clip images and putting it out there. It's not their image, it's not them, it's not anything that they've done, and they're just sticking it up on a wall and getting a lot of recognition for not really putting any thought into it.
Not taking ownership for someone else's work.
Taking ownership for somebody else, sometimes somebody else's artwork, sometimes just somebody else's image. So, yeah, it does seem like anything goes, I guess.
Oh, what do you think is the next best trend or big thing?
Gee, I don't know. I mean, I guess whoever knows that has got money in the bank on that. But I think the street art scene, as we know it now, is so overblown and flooded. I think it died as soon as that movie came out a few years back about it that made everybody think they can do it. And I feel that it's gotten so mainstream and so big that it's going to start waning. It's going to burn itself out. I don't know what the next trend is. I'm just going to keep doing what I do and keep trying to push a little bit and chip away at new concepts to it. And if the scene dies, I'll probably be better off for it, because then I'll have a little elbow room and not be constantly bombarded with advertisements, although that'll go forever, and other people trying to make a little name for themselves.
Have you ever heard of this street artist called Vixie?
No, I have not heard of Vixie. It sounds like a play on Banksy or Hanksy or Schmanksy or something like that. I'm sorry, I've not heard.
I never heard of Schmanksy.
I don't know, but I'm sure there is one.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts, yo, we came to win. Out the blocks like a world-class runner. Every day working spring, fall, winter, summer. Blowing up like we supposed to. Got those cause we go. Shows and promotion. Now